Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, or in some cases, good evening, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Keeping Your Web Messages on Track with a Little Help from AI. My name is Deb Simons. I'm going to be the host of today's broadcast. This is being sponsored by both Acrolinks as well as SDL. So I'm happy to show that today's speakers are Arjen van den Akker, who is the Senior Product Marketing Director at SDL. We also have Olivia Voiles, who is a Senior Product Manager from Acrolinks. And I've already introduced myself, and I'm the Senior Marketing Director here at Acrolinks. So before we get the show on the road, just a few things to cover, some housekeeping. We are recording today's broadcast. We also are preparing the slides so that we will have both the recording and the slides mailed out to you tomorrow. So you will receive an email from myself. Please be sure to open that up. It'll have all this great valuable information, and feel free to share it with anybody within your organization. The other thing is we love questions. So we're going to reserve some time at the end of the broadcast for questions. You could pop those into the question panel. And we'll, as I mentioned, get to those questions at the end. So with that, I'd like to introduce Arjen, and he is going to take over for now. Arjen.
Thank you, Deb. So welcome everybody also from my end. I'm from SDL, and I would like to use a few minutes on this webcast to set the scene as to why we are co-presenting Acrolinks and SDL here on this webcast and the actual topic of this webcast. And I start here with a slide that says the content challenge. And I think everybody that is either in marketing or in an organization that produces content knows that it is quite a challenging job to do. So if you want to move to the next slide, please, Deb. And I think one of the things that really is causing this challenge is that we as consumers have radically changed. So if you look at our online behavior, our digital behavior these days, it's very much all based on digital content that we engage with. So whether it's just looking up information, whether it's just reaching out for support or help or shopping online, all these activities are actually based on content, on digital content, and all that content needs to be produced by somebody somehow. And then typically not just in one language, but quite often in multiple languages. And if you add personalization to the mix, it gets even more complex. So next slide, please. So this is some interesting statistics that we've been digging up in terms of challenges related to content when you look at the digital experience that companies are trying to build these days. And if you look at the amount of information that is being produced, it's just an insane amount of content. Today, 2.5 terabytes of data is produced every day. And a lot of that is actually content. Yes, there's a lot of video in there as well, but video is content as well. So this is all content challenges that today's companies are struggling with. And they've all become sort of digital publishers in the end. Content marketing is a hot topic on everybody's agenda. But the challenges we're facing is quite often that all this content sits in different silos. We did some research recently in which we found that 36% of global enterprises store content in more than 10 repositories. 92% of these companies struggle with localization of that content. And most of them actually support 5 languages or more. And then quite often, a lot of the systems that are being used, such as content management systems, translation systems, they're not integrated. So a lot of people are copying and pasting content from one place to the next. Next slide, please. And that is actually depicted on this slide here, that challenge of how you manage and deliver content to the final recipient, to the customer, that you would want to know about your company, your brand, your products, etc. Because that business content, which you see here on the left-hand side, comes from a lot of different repositories. There's marketing content. That's usually one silo in the company. Then there's product content, could be in-depth product information, instruction manuals, etc. The video I touched upon, customer support, commerce is quite often a separate commerce team. So all this information and all these teams usually are sitting in their own departments, and quite often there is not as much cooperation as you would like to see. And then this also needs to be processed, it needs to be created, reviewed, personalized, and then somehow delivered, and not just in print or just on the website, but in a lot of different places, websites, mobile applications, in-store displays, social media. Of course, there's still print, social communities. So there's this entire ecosystem of technology that you need actually to manage this process. And it's very, very complex, and companies are struggling with this today. Next slide, please. Well, this is where HDL can help. If you look at a high-level overview of what HDL does, we have content management and translation technology and services that we provide, and we help companies actually get back control of this process, implement an operating model about how you manage all that content, and guide it through the phases of authoring and management, translation and localization for specific markets or audiences, and then the actual distribution and delivery of that information to the consumer. And this could be not just a B2C consumer, this could be also a B2B business environment, or even B2E employees or staff or partners can also be consumers, of course. And we do that through a series of solutions. We've got web content management solutions, structured content management, translation technology and services. And these solutions actually help companies address these problems. Next slide. So if I were to sum it up, what we as STL do is help companies create digital experiences on a global scale in a way that are continuous, so that you don't end up with a fragmented current customer experience. And the reason why we're presenting this webcast here is that, yeah, we have technology and services, but also critical partnerships that helps organizations, the organizations that are our customers, that helps them to actually manage content and the quality of that content that they produce. And this is where I would like to hand over back to Acrolinks and to Deb to tell a little bit more about how exactly that works.
Well, thank you. So, based on the title of the presentation, we did sprinkle in about AI helping with different messaging. And I mean, this is a topic that we could talk about, all day. But what I want to do is just spend a couple of moments just giving a couple of examples. So I love this slide. Back in the day, we used to think of, artificial intelligence as being this magic. And, we had this magician that would stand there with a wand and, looking at automobiles, for example, like, wouldn't it be great if, there was a magician that could wave the wand, cars would park themselves. But, what we're learning now really is that parking is a skill that's becoming redundant. So there's so many automakers like Ford and Cadillac that have introduced technology with inside that actually allows cars to park themselves. So the lessons learned is we don't need to do any more of these things. Really what happens is, AI is available now, and that's really taking over some of these different skills that we used to in the past think were very, very magical. And what it boils down to is that our model is really one of collaboration, right? It's really that intersection between, humans and machines. And, it really allows then that the AI, artificial intelligence, is really doing a lot of the grunt work. And it's freeing up then humans to really do what only, they can actually do. So on this slide, you'll see, as we all know, there's lots of great, cool tools and technology that's around, from, SEO targeting, social media monitoring, search, web analytics, and all that. And this is all about the consumption of content. But the pain point here is it's really not about the content itself. So, lessons learned is there's a big problem with that. And it's all as though we're looking into a rear view mirror. So, it's falling short on telling you how content is actually going to perform once it's published. When we talk about analytics, and Olivia is going to talk a little bit more in detail about that in just a few moments, it's really about delivering that next step. It's not only about the content consumption, but really that next step on predictive analytics before you actually publish. So this is another slide that I really enjoy too. I mean, back in the day, we would look at the customer life cycle sort of in this inverted funnel. And all the steps would be neatly outlined as to, how you had to get through all these different phases of the customer journey. And Aaron Provey of Serious Decisions really came up with this great model as to what the customer journey looks like today. This is the reality, right? Is that people are looking at content all over the place. It's become somewhat chaotic. And really it influences the process of how, content can be an inflection point, to guide and influence customers and not control. So with this, the next step in our presentation is I'm going to pass this over to Olivia, and she's really going to get into more of acrolinks, and then we're going to dive into an actual live demo. So with that, Olivia, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you. And wait 1 second. Here we go. And the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Deb. So as Deb said, I'm going to go a little bit into the product side of things. So how do we achieve helping our customers with AI? Our goal is to provide a platform that makes you successful, and we do this in a way that we call the 3 Gs. So goals, guidance, and governance is the way that our product breaks down, and I'll take you through these 3 Gs to explain how we do that. Acrolinks helps you produce great content with the only AI platform for enterprise content creation. And as Deb mentioned, as an extension of all of the new technology out there, Acrolinks is a platform which is, from the beginning, has been built on AI, and that's just a continuous theme throughout. Now, what do we mean by goals, guidance, and governance? In any process, just like with content creation, you need to have some kind of a strategy. So at the beginning, you have your goals. The guidance is the way that you enforce these goals, and governance is the way that you are able to get your overview of whether the goals are working for you. And these are really the 3 main pieces of the platform that represents Acrolinks. So what do we mean by goals? This is where you set your targets for how you want to speak to your customers, your audience, what kind of tone of voice, which writing guidelines, etc. And we also have ways that enable you to validate those goals. And Acrolinks can also learn from your content the more that you use this platform. So what do we mean by guidance? This is the second part of the 3 Gs. We provide guidance to your content contributors as they create content. And what's very key on this point is that we are integrated into very many authoring environments, and that's what the context of this, this webinar is today, together with SDL. And I'll show a demo a little bit later which demonstrates this. The last pillar is governance, and this is really a comprehensive analytics approach, starting with individual scorecards on each piece of content and being able to get an overview across an entire repository. So whether it's a CMS or any kind of a backend server that you're storing your content, Acrolinks enables you to get really transparency and control over of how your content is performing. So what do we mean by goals? How does this look in the product? So with Acrolinks, you can set your goals for terminology, style, and tone of voice. This example shows how a set of terminology might look like in the Acrolinks platform, broken down by different product areas and even languages. And so this is one way that you can also ensure that your content contributors are enforcing your global, your corporate standards, your product names, whatever your marketing department is defining. You can validate your goals. Acrolinks learns from every piece of content that it checks, as we said, and we also have tools like this guidance wizard so that you can fine-tune the system as you go along. And it's this continuing learning process from the content, which also makes Acrolinks so valuable. And every time you contribute more content, the process is just a continuous cycle. So this is where you can define your different requirements for audiences. So we all know that we have different types of content, more technical, more marketing, blog posts, different purposes, and you can really tune Acrolinks to meet those different requirements. And this is a screen of how you can do that in the product. Now on the guidance side, once you set up your goals, how does this get enforced? How do you make sure that your content contributors are actually conforming to the targets that you've set? So Acrolinx is the only software that can actually read your content. And how do we do this? This is where the so-called sidebar comes in, and Acrolinx is integrated directly into all of the authoring environments where content is created. On the governance side, as I mentioned before, for each piece of content that Acrolinx reads, a scorecard gives you an overview of all of the types of issues that are found. You can also do this in a batch mode and get an overview for an entire project. And we have tools to do this so that you can see not just for one piece of content, but an entire deliverable. How is that performing? Is it ready for publication? In addition to that, we have deep metrics which help track your content quality trends. So what do we mean by this? We have a number of dashboards which allow you to really drill down into the performance. So whether that's just overall quality scores or even connecting the analytics to your KPIs in your organization. And this is really important because once you've set up these goals, you want to measure the compliance with your corporate writing standards. And the Acrolinx Analytics platform allows you to do that. So when we say sidebar, we see here a few examples of different integrations. So different logos here from very common tools that a lot of different teams might be using to create content. And the sidebar really has a lot of advantages. So it's one consistent way of delivering guidance to any number of content contributors, no matter where they are contributing content. And one example here, which I will show next, is SDL for web content management. And this slide shows you a very high-level architecture of how the SDL web content management platform is set up. So you have this very clear deviation between the creation process, the management, the translation, and publish. And in the demo that I'm going to show now, I'll show you exactly how Acrolinx is integrated into the creation process, where your content contributors are working. So on this page, you see an example piece of content. When I hit this Acrolinx button at the top, you see that the sidebar loads here. And assuming that you've set your goals on the Acrolinx platform, which in this case I have, all I have to do is run a check. Acrolinx reads this content, which is on the page, and returns in a list different issues in the form of these cards. It's very flexible the way that you can interact with these cards. If I click on a card, it jumps to the issue in the document. I can also filter. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'll just show a simple example of how I can replace one specific term. I can filter here so that I'm looking only at terminology issues. And let's assume that my marketing department has rebranded and we're making sure that we're writing everything in the same way. So this particular term here, smart tech, needs to be written as one word instead of two. And you see that this is a very common mistake with terminology for marketing during rebranding. And I can simply, with one click, replace this in the entire document. Likewise, there's a few other terms that I can show how to just drop in the replacement automatically. And this assumes, of course, that my terminology is set up in the background. One more example. And just to point your attention to this Acrolinx score at the top here. So previously, the first time I checked, I got a score of 57. And that's on a scale of 0 to 100. Not such a great score, but I made a few changes here. And the next time I check, we should have seen some improvement there. So in fact, it's a very slight improvement, but one terminology change already made the number go up a little bit. I've hidden quite a few of these issues for the point of the demonstration. but I would continue on and fix all of these issues before I would publish this. And that's basically the way that Acrolinks works with SDL Web Content Management. Back to you, Deb, for finishing up with questions.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. Let me just get this back here. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in during the broadcast. And the first one is, could you talk a little bit about the support for non-English language? Is there support for such?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So Acrolinks supports different languages for checking, for analyzing. I showed an example of English document. We also support German, Chinese, French, Swedish, and Japanese. Yeah, typically you would use Acrolinks to check the source content before you translate, but it would also be possible to check content that has been translated.
Great.
Yeah, and just to add to that, because we saw the integration here between the SDL Web Content Management Platform and Acrolinks, of course, the SDL Web Content Management Platform is also multilingual, so you can also manage content in any language that you wish.
Thank you. Okay, the next question. This talks the integration between SDL Web and Acrolinks. Is there a separate cost associated for the integration?
Yeah, so I'll answer that one, Deb. So there is no cost for the integration. So SDL and Acrolinks built this integration together, and it's freely available, but clearly it only makes sense if you're a user of the SDL Web Content Management Platform. And since we are a reseller of the Acrolinks software as well, you could come to us if you are interested in this proposition, and we could supply you with both the Acrolinks licenses as well as the integration that links the two together. There's no cost to that integration piece, and it's fully supported. So it will be maintained, and if there are any issues, we will fix them. So it's a fully supported integration.
Great, thank you. So that looks like all the questions that we have for today. If there are any additional, feel free to send those to any one of us. But before we close out, Acrolinks and SDL will be together at SDL Connect. So this event is taking place, as you can see here, October 25th through 26th in San Jose. Feel free to come by and visit the Acrolinks booth, as well as spend time for any questions you might have regarding the integration. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy day to attend today's presentation, and a big thank you to Arian and Olivia for their time today. As I mentioned, we have recorded today's session. You will be receiving an email tomorrow. It will have the recording and the slides. So thank you again for your time today, and hope to be talking to all of you in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.